Hello and welcome, my name is Akira and this is my Let's Play series of Europa Universalis IV where we'll be playing as the Ottomans, and of course we are playing in the new expansion Mare Nostrum. Well, in one of my earlier videos I got a bunch of, or in several of my earlier videos I got a bunch of questions. I'll try to answer them when it makes sense. I've made a few notes here on my paper, but one of them we can talk about right now. And there was a question about estates and territory and what it all means. So in order to completely understand that, we need to first understand a couple concepts for a province. So first of all, what you get out of a province is determined by its development. We've talked about this before. The development is made up of military development, which gives extra manpower and garrison growth. Then it is diplomatic, which gives you trade value. It gives you trade goods produced, and it decreases local shipbuilding time. And then of course there is administrative, which gives, if I can find it somewhere where I can increase it. Oh, I don't have any points right now, but anyway, it gives base tax, so it gives tax. But it's not only the development who decides this. Another thing that decides it is autonomy. And autonomy is basically what it says. It's how autonomous this province is in your realm, how much they decide for themselves. And the autonomy is basically just a modifier on everything in the province. So if it has a modifier of 89.2, then, well, 89.2% is taking off of almost everything. Except for trade power, where only half of that is taken off. So having high autonomy means that you don't really get anything out of provinces. So for example, this province, I get a little bit more than 10% out of what I would have gotten out of this province had it been a fully non-autonomous province. So, where does this tie in with estates and territory? Well, it used to be that you had something called overseas, and I think I can show you it on a old map mode here. So it used to be that everything inside, if you are a country inside Europe, then everything inside what they in the game defines as Europe would be not overseas, and everything else would be overseas. And what did you then get out of having overseas provinces? Well, overseas provinces you could call cheaper, but they had a minimum autonomy of 75%. So if I captured all of this Indian land during the old rules, then I could core it all very cheap, but I could never get the autonomy below 75%. So I wouldn't get that much out of the land unless I took a lot of it. And it was basically a way of kind of making it so that even if you are a player and you are taking all of the land and being a general badass, you don't get too much ahead of the AI, and the game thus stays fun. And it also has ties to reality, where ruling over too much land is just harder and you will get less out of it. But the overseas thing didn't really model this too well, because as you can see, if you only went and took land in Europe, you could have a whole crazy bunch of land without any problems. And I think that's the main motivation of why they introduced territory now and states. So this is a change in the newest patch where you can have states and territories. And what is basically is that from right now, everything that is not a state, when you take over that, you take it over as if it were a overseas province. So if I'm gonna take a bunch of land here from the QQ, I only have to pay 50% of the coring cost right away. But those territories that I then take will, or those provinces that I then take, will be territories. And they will thus only give 75, or have a cap of 75% autonomy, and they can never get below that. So it's exactly how overseas territory used to work. That means that I can expand as much as I want and pay cheap prices on it, but the land won't be that good unless I convert it. So how do I convert it? Well, states and territory are divided up into these areas here. You can find it under the geographical map modes area. And each area consists of a somewhat equal amount of development. So, for example, this state is 6 different provinces. But if I look through them, these are actually... Oh, it's 2 different provinces. They just had the same color. Okay. Anyways, some of them, if you look around... So, for example, Lakara here, there's 4 provinces in this area, but some of them are really low development. So that's kind of how it's what you call balanced. But if I own a parts of an area, I can make it into a state. I do this by pressing this button here. Now this is already a state, so I can't make it into. I can remove it from my state, but if I find a province that's not a state, see if I have some. Oh, I have some up here. So these provinces here, I have caught them. You can see I have a core in this province, but they are not a state. I haven't pressed this button yet. If I press this button, I will make it into a state, and all these 3 provinces will then be made into a state. But there will still only be a territory core until I pay the full coring cost. I'll have to pay the other 50% to then make it into a state core, but then they can get down to a 0 autonomy level. So I pay a little bit extra and I get more out of the territory. And on top of that, they also introduced state maintenance. So right now I'm paying 3.63 ducats to maintain my 15 states. And it seems though that I must apologize, I haven't really the expansion came out on Tuesday, so I don't know everything about it. But it seems that territory actually has a 50% minimum autonomy. So they are a little bit better than overseas provinces, but I guess maybe overseas provinces still exist then with 75% autonomy. We'll find out once we start going that far. Anyway, that was states and territory. So basically, to get to recap, states are and territories are divided up into these areas, and each area can be turned into a state separately. The difference between states and territories is that states can have a 0 autonomy, while territories has a minimum autonomy of 50%. So at least 50% of the state's money and manpower and stuff will not go to you. And there is a maximum amount of states that you can own. In my case, it's 20 because of my government rate, the base value of 5, and my government rank is like my empire, and despotic government is my government type. So we checked it out earlier that when I later in the game change to one of these more advanced government types, then I can have 10 states instead of 5. And right now we are doing the administrative idea, which gives 3 extra states. So we could get to a maximum of 28 states later on in the game. So that's basically everything I know at this point about territories and states. We'll probably find out more details later on when we conquer more territory. But then there are also something called estates, and estates were added in the last expansion. And we can look at the estates map mode here. You can see that I haven't got estates all over. I only have estates in these provinces. And what does estates do then, you ask? Well, let's look at the estates tab. So we have 4 different estates. The 3 of them, the base, the merchant guilds, and the ulema, also sometimes called the nobles and the clergy, are general estates, and they are available to almost every European country. And then we also have a Jimmy estate, which is a Muslim estate, and that's basically all non-Muslims living in your lands are part of the Jimmy estate. The different estates give different bonuses. The base, or the nobles, has to do with military stuff, so they have to do with the military points here, or the military development. The merchants have to do with the diplomatic development, and the clergy has to do with the base tax development, so the administrative development. And they give bonuses both on a countrywide level, like you can see here, and on a state level. So the base in this province give 20% extra manpower in this province, but you pay a price for the estates, because when you give power to the estates, they of course have some autonomy in their state. So the minimum autonomy in a province where you have an estate is 25%. Although any estate doesn't give the modifier to whatever its own focus is. So the nobles or base, their focus is military, so the 25% autonomy doesn't apply to military values. So it doesn't apply to land manpower modifier, and it doesn't apply to land force limit. If we look to a ulema estate or a clergy estate province, then their bonus or their autonomy doesn't apply to local tax modifier, and for merchant guilds it doesn't apply to local protection efficiency, local trade power, naval force limit, or local sailors. So basically, if you want to maximize what you get out of your estates, you want to put them in provinces where the main focus of that province is also the main focus of your estate to get the maximum benefits. However, you are not completely autonomous to choose all of this, because some of the estates actually require you to give them a certain amount of land. The base, they expect to have at least 10% of your states. And that is only your states, not your territory. They want 10% of your states. And the ulema also wants 10%. And this is different for different countries. Some countries have more needy nobles or less needy nobles. In my case, the merchant guild and the jimmy doesn't really expect anything. But in some countries, the merchant guild will also expect to have a certain amount of territory. And there are a few other things that you need to know about estates, namely that they have loyalty and influence. The loyalty decides which kind of bonuses they give. So the base normally give manpower recovery speed, but if you get them above 60% loyalty, they also give land maintenance modifier. On the other hand, if you get them below 40%, they give a penalty on both those things. It's the same for most other estates, like the Jimmy, you normally give tolerance of heathens. If you get them above 60, they also give a bonus to technology cost. And if they get below 40, they give a malice. Merchant guilds give trade efficiency and development if you get them above. And you never get tax and stability cost if you get them above. Their influence is a measure of how influential they are in their country, and the influence affects the size of your bonuses. So the loyalty decides that I get manpower recovery speed, but the influence level decides that it'll be plus 20%. If it was lower, then it will be 15 and 10 and 5%. And the influence also decides which of these options, which of these interactions you can use. So for example, you can see that maybe easier to show it here. If I want to recruit from the Jimmy, I need at least 40 influence to do it. So that's basically it. What you want to watch out for with influence is something that we have a problem with right now, namely that the base have too much influence. So they are trying to take over my country. They activate this disaster, which is called the aristocratic queue, and they can give 1 progress per month. If I had been above 85, I think, then they would get 2 progress a month, and so forth. And once they reach 100 progress, they'll trigger a disaster. So you want to be really careful what you get them. And sometimes it's not your choice, because sometimes events will just pop up that force you to give some province or some estate. That's on pause while we talk, by the way. Some estate, some influence. So right now we have problems with these base, and we'll have to deal with that before the end or before the disaster. But as far as I remember, yeah, they are gonna lose 10 influence in August 65. So hopefully that'll be before the disaster triggers. Otherwise, we'll have to take some territory from them. Anyway, let's get back to the game. That was actually a pretty long talk about that. I should probably make a guide video about that instead, but that'll be a while since real life is taking a lot of my time right now. Anyway, we just finished a big war with the Mamluks, took a bunch of land down here in the Levant, and we are doing okay with coring them, and we are actually losing corruption right now because I put up the slider a little bit. So right now we are just in a rebuilding phase. We used a bunch of manpower in that war. We need to build that back up, and also I want to get to this third idea in administrative ideas. So we're gonna kind of focus on this for a while, and unless we get up to maximum manpower, we won't really be going into wars, I think. So, but our power protection is pretty high, so we don't have to worry about that for a while. And you know what? Just lost a war to Venice and gave some money. And we can invest in some new technology. But we are ahead of time, so let's just wait a year and get it for cheap. But this is some really nice military technology. Finally we'll be able to build barracks so we can get more manpower. And I am gonna drink some coffee. I'm thinking I might want to get rid of like half of this, these mercenaries. Get rid of these. And I'll get rid of half of these. I'll just put it all in one army. We will hire some new guys once we get some manpower back. So we have 8 cavalry right now, or 7 cavalry right now, and we need at least 8, I think. We probably need 12 actually, so we can have 6 in each army. So, provinces frustrated by lack of autonomy. Our centralizing policy led many of the provinces to feel that they have lost a lot of autonomy. There's talk of revolt in the air, so we can either give 10 unrest in Bosok. They have currently minus 2.4. Or we can lose prestige and administrative power. Let's just give them some unrest. Let that take off. And we'll just put our army there. And we still have unrest. I'm pretty sure this is a bug, because you're not supposed to get unrest from separation in your capital. You can't turn up autonomy to mediate it, so I'm feeling this is a bug, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't usually happen. The lemma just lost a modifier, and the base lost a modifier, and about below 70 now. Very nice. Very nice. Ulema political struggle. The time has come for the Ulema to appoint a new leader to assist our Padishah in the city, or in the capital. The likely candidate is an old cleric with a solid history as a prominent member of the Ulema behind him. He has, however, also acquired many enemies during his life, who now hope to see a somewhat younger candidate with a less ugly past be appointed. As Padishah, it would not be hard to influence this election to the younger candidate, who would likely be more loyal. It seemed to meddle in the affairs of the Lemma, however, would very likely weaken the faction in the long run. So we can give them 10 influence, or we can give them 10 loyalty but lose 10 influence. Interesting. So I definitely don't want to lose 10 loyalty. That's okay. 10 influence or lose. So I think I'm just gonna give them the influence. because I can get loyalty other ways. So if I give them 10 influence and then just pay basically the same amount of money, I give 15 loyalty instead, and then I give me a bunch of tax and stability cost. That seems like a good trade. Let's turn them maintenance up to half so they give some more rebel suppression once they get there. And we got getting a bunch of cores. And again, we won't turn this territory into... down here it's 75% autonomy. I'm wondering what... oh, and it's 75% up here now. I guess it was just a load-in error, so it is 75%, so it does work exactly like overseas territory. Well, Europa Universalis has some weird things with the code that some things doesn't get applied until a tick. So sometimes tooltips won't show the right thing when you load in. I think it's to do with the Clausewitz engine, because there's problems like that in Hearts of Iron 2 or Hearts of Iron 3 as well, where some, for example, supplies won't be applied until the end of the month. Anyway, this video has reached the end. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was a bit quiet. If you did, consider hitting the like button and subscribing, and of course feel free to come and ask questions on my videos. I try to answer as quick as possible, and if it's something that's relevant to everyone, I'll take it up in a video when I can. Hope to see you in the next one, and until then, have a good day.